we are in Tokyo. After 3 long years, we are finally back at my favorite city, a city brimming with activity and culture steeped between tradition and modernity. Not to mention there are all sorts of foods as well, and obviously we are here to eat, and in this trip we are going to dive deep into the foods that Tokyo has to offer. Sukiyaki, tempura, unagi, ramen, udon, soba, a wide area of konbini foods, all sorts of wagashi, and of course, we'll try to explore some world-class restaurants if our budget permits. But before we do any of that, I think it is apt for us to first revisit my favorite ramen in the entire world, Nakuyu. So let's go! We have employed the all or nothing method. Let me explain why. Now it's about 9 AM, Nakuyu opens at 11. So when you come to eat at Nakuyu, you generally have to wait for about 1.5 hours standing. But there are 2 chairs. They bring out at 9 AM. It's for the first 2 guys who arrive, so it's sort of like a prize. So obviously we chose to come early so that we can sit. It's way better than standing for 1.5 hours. By the way, if it's your first time visiting and you didn't get the champion seat, it's okay. They have this very cute looking diagram hanging right over there that explains how you should queue. Props to the artist. Since we have some time to kill, let me tell you a little story. For all the ramen heads out there, you probably know that the first Michelin star ramen is Suta, and that is back in 2015. However, if I understood correctly, there's another ramen store called Mist in Hong Kong, and back in 2011, they actually got a Michelin star. Back then, Michelin didn't have the category for ramen, so they got it under Japanese cuisine, and that chef is no other than Kazumasa Saito, the chef of Nakuyu. Chef Kazumasa came back in 2012 and opened up Nakuyu, specializing in Tantan Men, the spicy nami noodles that originates from Sichuan, China. However, of course, he made the Japanese version, and in 2017 they got their Michelin star, which he has retained to date. Now, I'm going to need a bit of help from you guys. Inside, there's quite noticeable music, and generally when people eat ramen, they tend to eat it in silence, so I'm not going to talk too loud so as not to disturb the other patrons eating their ramen. If you have been watching the episode without any subtitles to this point, I think it is about time for you to turn on the subtitles. You're gonna need it. Here it is in all its glory. Smells as good as I remember it to be. Look at that fiery, volcanic looking broth, giving that noodle a very nice lava bath, and then ajitama on the side together with some green onions, some negi right on top. Okay, I'm gonna just start now. Broth. This broth, it brings back memories. Mildly spicy and nummy, very savory. The complex umami from the use of beef bones, chicken, oyster and kombu definitely shows converging to form a symphony in my mouth. Noodles are supple and bouncy. It comes together mildly, allowing that broth to stick. It's perfect for this broth. And see the morsels of minced pork clinging on the noodles for dear life? They add an extra layer of meaty flavour, not to mention mouthfeel. The sesame paste and peanut crumbs don't scream in your face. It works in the back to pad the broth, giving it a lightly nutty aftertaste. Okay guys, obviously I wouldn't just order the noodles. I got low temperature cooked char siu as well. We've got 3 slices. It looks pretty nice. I think probably lightly peppered. Oh, you absolutely must eat it on its own. I don't think you should dip it in the broth because it's got a very delicate umami of the pork. It's served cold. You can taste the fattiness and the lean meat's texture. It's a very good piece of low temperature cooked pork. So don't dip it in noodles. The Tantanmen's broth is way too robust for this. It will destroy the flavor of this pork char siu. Gonna move on to the ajitama now. Let's see how beautiful it is today. I'm gonna, oh, beautiful, beautiful runny egg yolk. Let's go, man. Very well marinated. Good flavor of shoyu, some mirin sake as expected. Very good egg once again, as expected. Oh my god, this is so good. Beautiful ajitama.
Hello guys, we are now at Busy Town Ikebukuro, 2-3 stops from Nakiryu. And before we're heading to break-in time, let me introduce you my favorite wagashi, Marmite Daifuku from Gurindo. Gurindo is a famous wagashi shop about 20 minutes walk from Nakiryu. And Marmite Daifuku is a mochi with red bean filling with some black soybean outside. Ooh, look at how soft and powdery it is! The skin is thin, soft, with a nice chew, and the red bean paste is sweet with some grittiness. It's suban, which means there are some red bean skin inside. The soybean has a very nice saltiness. It helps to cut down the sweetness from the red bean. Still my favorite daifuku.
Playing time! Let's talk about our first spot, Nakiryu. Definitely as good as when we first had it. What a robust, punchy broth brimming with umami from the proteins, light heat from chili oil, and delicate nummy mouthfeel from the Sichuan peppercorn. Noodles are perfectly silky soft, yet springy with a good bite, forming a graceful dance with the punchy broth. Minced pork adds to the umami and texture, whereas negi cuts down on the richness with a refreshing crunch. The low-temperature cooked pork is delicate and brimming with its natural sweetness, a nice change of scenery to the deeply flavoured tantanmen. We even got a side of chicken gyoza that has a nice thin skin and well-marinated filling. It was very enjoyable. Now, in our years of food adventures, I would say that we have gotten a tiny glimpse into the world of gourmet, and oftentimes what separates a great dish from a good dish, in this case ramen, lies in the magical combination of flavors, where you can't clearly tell apart every single layer because they intermingle and melt into each other harmoniously, creating a concoction akin to the elixir of life. And Nakiryu ramen falls into this category. Not to mention, it's a punchy, rich bowl that sits more on the spectrum of a clear soup ramen. It's not heavy nor cloy at all. In fact, it even exudes delicateness. Now. It's not all praises and kisses for Nakiryu. We have eaten at Nakiryu long enough to notice that they are not the most consistent. There will be times where the broth is just a bit off in flavor balance as well as the depth. However, it generally doesn't fall off the cliff. The worst we have ever had probably sits a level lower than our current score for Nakiryu. Today they are at their usual level, whereas during our last visit it left quite a bit more to be desired, to be honest. And taking consideration of today's bowl, Nakiryu scores 1 plate on the gourmet plate, which means it's some high quality tantanmen with glimpses of genius thanks to their elixir concocted from beef bones, chicken, oyster and kombu, slurpable thin noodles, and quality condiments. Absolutely recommended for ramen lovers out there. If you're in Tokyo, do try Nakiryu out. That's provided you don't mind waiting an hour or more for that bowl of ramen. Yeah, so be prepared to wait. Now, on to the next stop, Gunrindo.
A delicious mame daifuku, still the best we have had.
I think the combination is still great, right?
Yep. Chewy, soft, mochi skin, delicately gritty suban, paired with generous amount of salted soybean with a great snack. The red bean paste is quite sweet, but it gets cut down nicely by the saltiness from the soybean. It's a really good mame daifuku. And with that said, Gunrindo score 1 plate on the gourmet plate, which means it's some high quality mame daifuku with the genius in its lively, chewy, mochi skin. Sweet, delicate anko and generous quality soybean. Absolutely worth trying out for the wagashi lover. If you're going to Nakuru, remember to pick them up after or before your meal. Best to go early though, as they sell out usually by midday.
So there you have it, our first episode in Tokyo where we revisit our favorite ramen Nakyu as well as have our favorite mame daifuku Gunrindo. I think this is a beautiful start to this series because when we first started our channel, our first episode was Nakyu. So I hope we did it justice this time around. Hope you enjoyed this vlog. If you did, do consider giving us a thumbs up. If you yet to subscribe, do consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell button. Next week, we are going to have some street foods at this very well-known historical temple. We're going to eat around the temple, and the temple is called Sensoji. So see you next week in Tokyo. Bye!